Hi, welcome to this talk. My name is Cordero and I am a PhD student at Université Côte in France. And I am going to present you part of the project of my PhD that I entitled Homophonic Speech Sequences in French, the Role of Acoustic and Contextual Cues for Disambiguation. And the idea behind this project is that lexical competition is the process that enables us to solve transient ambiguities and recognize target meaning. So what happened to homophonic sequences? In French, there are some variations, some acoustic indices that French listeners actually perceive and use them to segment content words. So for instance, fundamental frequency is seen to rise at the beginning of content words, such as in these examples that you can see here, l'ami, that they are pronounced similarly, but as shown, the F0 rises earlier for the first one, for ami than for me. So we wanted to examine the cues involved in processing word boundaries in French, and the leading question was, how does the sensitivity to fine-grained acoustic details change at sentence level? So we hypothesized that if there is fine acoustic analysis in real-time speech processing, then larger N400 effects should be seen for sentences with incongruent acoustic information compared to congruent sentences. On the contrary, if homophonic representations are accessed through contextual means, then no differences are expected to be between incongruent and congruent contexts. So no N400 effect will be appearing in the data. For that, we created different sets of sentences with homophonic sequences such as l'ami, in incongruent and congruent contexts. And we also created some controlled sentences having semantic violations so that this would yield an N400 component. In a first experiment, we actually presented participants with a semantic judgment task, so that the focus was on the sentential information, whereas in a second experiment, we presented participants with a cross-modal identification task, so that the focus was shifted to lexical information, so to words that were presented. So as for results, in the first experiment, incongruent and congruent context presented positive cowing amplitudes around 400 milliseconds, whereas in the second experiment, we found a positivity also for control contexts, and incongruent and control were not statistically different. And in later time windows, we detected an N400 effect starting earlier in the second experiment for control and incongruent context, being anterior for incongruent context and broader and with a larger amplitude for control context. So from these results, we concluded that this late N400 time window reflects when the critical sequences were actually processed in our sentences. And we also see how control context presented larger and broader amplitudes for both experiments, although for the incongruent, the negativity was clearly seen in the second experiment. So the first experiment actually shows no clear neural markers showing perceptual differences. And in the second experiment suggests that listeners seem to perceive acoustic variations, although it does not prevent them from accessing the correct meaning. Moreover, we see how tasks yielded differences in the N400 amplitude sizes, showing that high-level cognitive processes like attention may be involved, and this could be related to the effect of task that has been seen before. And also, we think that the use of cues then may be situational dependent, so that it fits the goal more than being hierarchical. Thank you very much for listening, and here you have some references.